Let me just introduce AvePoint very quickly, get this bit out of the way, and then we'll jump into the demo. AvePoint was originally founded in 2001, back in the day when SharePoint Portal Server was first released, aka Project Tahoe. Since then, we've now become the largest infrastructure ISV with over 8,000 customers. Our global presence means that at any time there will be a AvePoint office open and online and available. We have over 500 in-house developers, which means that we can be very responsive and very agile to customer requests. And that's really what our business model is founded on. Our software has been embedded in TSM for SharePoint and NetApp Snap Manager, so we have these great OEM relationships with our partners. And being a gold certified depth managed partner means that along with participating in all the SharePoint related taps, we're also regularly invited to Microsoft to feedback how we see the SharePoint market moving towards, and also having a full-time employee based at Redmond gives us an insight as to what Microsoft are doing in the SharePoint space as well. Okay, so by connecting people, information, and processes, you create a collaborative environment which leads to a more productive workforce. So the reason organizations roll out SharePoint is initially, one of the core reasons is for collaboration and thus improving user productivity. So what we're actually going to do is simulate a customer sort of engineer experience for you, whereas I'm going to play the customer, and obviously Roberto will be playing the resident engineer. And we're going to just show you some of our technology's capabilities. So, Roberto, I've rolled out my SharePoint environment. I've spent months and months building and customizing the look and feel. I've built a very customized taxonomy. I've done all the cool stuff with managed metadata and document sets, but I'm just not seeing the SharePoint adoption. Users are still going to their S drives or their U drives to access their information. So my adoption is still very, very low. Is there anything that you can do to help?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely that's something that that's a problem that some people are facing every day, like when they want to make use of their existing net-search, for example, to connect into SharePoint. So we have obviously a tool that will allow you that will help you to perform those tasks. So just let me show you, okay? So just let me switch to our environment, okay? I will be doing this tutorial with the new SharePoint 2010, okay? First of all, just let me show you, for example, how it looks like, yeah, in a real scenario, like we have our net search, it doesn't matter the amount of data that we have across our net drives, for example. In this example, for example, let's say I have my connector folder, could be any of your net search that you have in the public folders, and with different documents, okay, you have normal Office files, PDFs, images, folders, subfolders, okay. So obviously you have two options. That will be, for example, the migration, but the other one will be, let's say I want to connect all that information in my existing SharePoint environment. Like, for example, you want to make use, yeah, like you mentioned, like all your metadata, you want to apply your content types, you have to apply your own managed metadata. So this will be very, very easy. So basically, I will just show you, I have my connector site, okay, and obviously I have some, for example, I have some content types. For example, I have my connector content type with some populated columns. I will show you later. For example, I have my custom metadata. I created just one group, a group. I don't know if you can, oh, okay, just let me scroll down because I think you cannot see very well. Okay. So I created one group term with a term set, okay? And let's say that at the moment that I want to connect those files into the file system, from the file system into SharePoint, I want to apply all that custom metadata. So before showing you how it works, basically just explaining you a little bit of more the underlying technology, Obviously, we make use of existing technologies. Okay, we make use of existing providers. Like, for example, in my case, I'm running 2010 with SQL 2008. As you can see, I'm running RBS in my farm. Okay, and as you can see, this is only applied to one of my content databases, as you may know. So basically, with the installation of RBS is pretty straightforward. I mean, we only make use of these providers as a technology, okay? You just only need to enable RBS and click on install on your farm. You don't need extra scripting on your SQL server. Just click on enable and we'll do it for you.
So Roberto, what about, I've got a Moss farm as well. I'm running too. So is there anything you can do for Moss?
Yeah, of course. I mean, in this case, also you can see, like we support EBS provider also. So in case that you are running your 2007 farm, your Moss farm, you will still be able to use our technology. So at the end, we only use EBS or RBS as the provider. So you just only select which one and click enable. As you may know, obviously ABS will be deprecated in the future, but you will have tools to change from one to another one. Or obviously for on our site, there is no problem. I mean, you can switch from EBS and then RBS, so there is no problem.
Is it also true that the RBS provider is free?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so I can use that RBS provider, both the EBS and the RBS, and it doesn't cost me a penny.
Exactly.
Okay,
that's correct. Those are technology that are provided by Microsoft or SQL in this case, in the case of RBS. So you just need to select which one and click on enable. There is no extra licensing or no extra cost. So obviously, like once you have enabled this feature, you can start using our connector tool. So just let me show you some settings, for example. First of all, well, this will be installed as a solution, okay, it's a WSP package. Basically, you only need to select your farm, deploy the WSP package, and enable in which web application you want to use it. So it's just as easy as just enable and then activate the system feature, okay?
So Roberto, this is Docker. This is the actual platform.
Yeah.
This is a web-based platform.
Yes, exactly. This is, I mean, I didn't show from the beginning. Basically, Docker, it's web-based. All this interface, okay, this is web-based, so that will allow you to access from anywhere. I mean, there's no need for you to log in into the machine and the server where Docker is installed. You only need to just type the URL of Docker, the Docker manager, and we'll be able to use any of the suites. So for connector, I was showing the installer settings. I want to show you just the different settings because, yeah, maybe you want to, I don't know, you want to change the way that you map, for example, the permissions. For example, when you connect those files from the file system into SharePoint, how those permissions from the NTFS folder will be mapped into SharePoint. So from here you will be able to, those are the default mappings, but still you will be able to apply fine-grained permissions and create your own set of permissions, SharePoint level, so those permissions will be mapped to the ones that you created. Okay, the same way we have many concerns from some customers like, yeah, since we are connecting from the file system, for example, what will happen with the illegal characters? So those illegal characters that you have existing in your file system, how will be replaced in SharePoint? Obviously, you can modify the replaced characters, but also especially the character length. So yeah, like for those users that when they create the typical Word file and they click on save and it will be saved with the whole line of characters, you will be able to, let's say, to trim those the length of those files.
Can we have questions? Or?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Sorry, are these settings per web app, or are some of these settings can be set up at the farm level?
Yeah, I mean, basically you create profiles, different profiles, okay? So for example, this is the default one, but you can create as many profiles. So then when you create the library that you are going to connect, you can apply different profiles. So it's not per web application or per farm, it's basically per content library that you are connecting, okay? So do you think that this will be interesting? I mean, do you think that all these settings will
yeah, because I know there's characters definitely in my file share, so that was one of my concerns. So yeah, I think, I think the trimming functionality will also be very useful. We've also got a very complex file, NTFS file structure, so again, mapping that into SharePoint directly will definitely save a lot of pain and headaches. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
So I think the best idea is just jump into the actual how it work, how it look like. Okay. So yes.
When you expose a file share and the client opens a file in the file share,
Yep.
is that file going through the web server back to the client, or it goes directly from the server to the client?
Well,
Is traffic going through consuming web resources or not?
I mean, basically, since we are using RBS, the main idea, that's the advantage of the connector is that we are only moving the metadata into let's say into SharePoint. Okay, so then the file itself will stay in the file system, still available for the users. So it's not like we place that file into SharePoint. It's not like upload the file.
When the client in SharePoint, when you click on
Yes.
the link,
Yeah.
the client going straight to
Yeah.
It will go through the web service, yes.
Yeah.
It's not using the web service.
It will go through the web service, yes.
So it consumes web.
Yes.
Okay.
You'll see that because of the integration with all the SharePoint functionality, as Roberto will show you, the metadata, the security trimming, all of the bells and whistles that you get out of a document library. We have to make sure that we follow the.
It was the case for
Yeah.
logs when you externalize. but
Yeah.
I wasn't
Sure.
sure with the file shares if it was the same.
Yeah. No.
So, as you can see, I have a normal site created, and the way that connector works basically is that we create a new type of library. I mean, this is very straightforward. The process is the same that is if you are going to create a document library, okay? But we have a new type, it's called content library, okay? So we click on create, and this will start a two-step process. As you can see, this is normal template when you try to create a document library, okay? So let's enter the names, okay? So for example, connector is great. Oops, I think it changed. And enter the description, navigation details, versioning. I will show you later, but you will still be able to use any. You will be able to manipulate this document library in the same way that you will be able to check in, check out, enable versioning. So I will enable versioning, so I will show you how it works. Templates. In this case, will be an EdShare, but we will allow you also to connect your files if you are using some kind of storage into the cloud. Okay, so you have Rackspace, Microsoft Azure, MMC Atmos, or Amazon S3. You will be able to still connect those files from the cloud with a connector into SharePoint. Okay, template, Microsoft Word. So I click on create, and the next step, it will be the second and last step. That will be the difference is that we need to input a UNC path. Okay, so I have here the information. So I'm going to connect to my connector folder. Okay, at this point you can also specify the root if you want. Just input the user that is going to connect to this file share and the password.
So Roberto, this looks a little bit complicated for my end users. Is there any way that we can help? I know for IT pros this is pretty straightforward stuff, but to my business user, they may not know what the UNC path is.
Yeah, obviously we support like an SDK. Okay. So if you want to, you want to script or to automatize based on your needs to create all these content libraries, you will be able to just manipulate with our SDK that we provide and automatize all the process.
That's great, thanks.
So once you enter this information, okay, basically you have more options. Like, for example, I will show you later from the interface what's the meaning of permissions for loading and synchronizing operations. By default, only the site owners and administrators will be able to perform those operations, so the end user won't be able to load new content or synchronize. Okay, you can load their folder immediately. For demo purposes, I will just wait for to load the content. Load permissions from file system. This is in case that you, instead of using our mappings that I showed you before, you will be able to load those permissions from your file system into SharePoint. Basically, we will break any inheritance for that library, and it will load those users or groups from that you have in Active Directory into SharePoint. Then you are able to load the metadata from the file system at file level. And then, for example, the allow link large file, basically this is interesting in case that you want to connect, you want to, let's say, to skip that the limitation, the native limitation from SharePoint of 2 gigabytes of files. So you want to, I don't know, you have the IT department and they have their ISO files, for example, and they want to be available in SharePoint, they will be able to use this tool to connect those ISO files. So I will just click on Save. Okay, so as you can see, my document library, in this case content library, is created. I will minimize because yes, we can see. As you can see, this is normal SharePoint. The only difference is that we have a new element in the ribbon. Okay, it's called a point connector, and at this point we only have one operation available, which is load operations. So in this case, let's load that UNC folder that I specified before. So in this case, I will load current folder and subfolders. Click on yes. It's warning me that maybe if I have, depending on how, obviously it will take more time if it needs to crawl your whole structure of folders, subfolders, etc. So this process shouldn't take a long time. Obviously, this is my virtual machine running on my laptop. So obviously, usually it's really fast, especially for the amount. So, okay, so it's finished. And as you can see, I have all my files that looks exactly the same as the files that I have in my file system. Okay? So I have folders, my subfolders. Okay? At this point, obviously, I will be able to just now, and for example, I can apply my system metadata. I can, by default, the metadata should be, so I want to add my content type, for example, the connector content type, and go back to my document library, and I will just change, for example, the columns, just to show, okay, I want to add to the view a new column. For example, yeah, connected. I think I have some retention policies, for example, some different columns that I created. So at this point, yeah, this is pretty straightforward. What I'm going to do is just I'm going to log out and I'm going to log in as a normal user. So just to show you how will be the experience of a normal user. So my colleague, Liam Harrison, for example. Oops, I think. Okay, so this is a normal user, okay, that logging into Docaf, sorry, into the content library, and at this point, this user will still be able to edit this, the properties of the file, change the content type, for example, and for example, yeah, it's connected, retention policy of 2 years, for example. Click on Save, and I will have my new metadata populated. And also, since I enable versioning, I will be able also, I guess, to see my version history. So this is the one that was created when I created the load the content, and the new version. How, basically, internally, how we deal with the versioning is we create in the file system a hidden folder with the history, and for each of the files that we are creating the versioning, we'll create the different versions within this folder. So that way the versions will be stored, still be stored into the file system, but not into SharePoint. Okay, so at this point, users will be able to check in, check out. As you can see, it's a normal document library. There's no difference with an just out-of-the-box document library. With all the different, you can modify those documents, apply your custom metadata, custom columns, etc. Okay, so just.
Has anyone got any questions at this stage? Okay, great. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly.
Sorry. Yes.
Sorry, I'm not technical, but I know we use Novell Access Managers to all our authentication, and we can't use SharePoint to search our network drives because of Novell. Does this work?
Yeah.
So it does work with Novell?
This will use native search, so I mean Roberto will be able to tell you better, but
yeah.
The information, because of the relationship between the information stored in SQL, we will be able to basically run a search across the file share as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if you recrawl, and that will be indexed again. I mean, so you can search. The same documents, based on metadata, you are able to search, no problem. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just to recap, SharePoint becomes the user's first point of call for their access, thus giving you instant ROI. With DocApp Connector, you can massively reduce the time to migrate data by connecting instead. As you've seen, all the SharePoint bells and whistles are fully supported, things like metadata search, managed metadata, alerts, security trimming, all of that functionality that you get with a typical document library is all available with a DocApp connected library. Being able to overcome the 2 gig file size limitation means that, as well as Roberto said, managing ISO files, you can also store large media files and access them through your SharePoint environment. Having the SDK actually came about from a particular customer requirement where they needed to provision 30,000 My Sites with connected libraries. So they actually approached us to build something to automate and script that process. So now every user, when they create the My Site, it automatically populates a connected library to store their data on, rather than storing that information in SQL directly. And the final thing is obviously, the buzzword right now, the cloud. We support various cloud providers, and also if you've got custom storage devices, we also have DLLs that will allow you to map to those devices as well. Okay, so I'm just going to touch upon a customer case study very briefly. So LPMA, the Land Property Management Authority in New South Wales in Australia, actually had 8 terabytes of legacy file share content that they wanted us that they actually wanted to migrate into SharePoint. Initially, they had been told to provision somewhere in the region of 80 SQL databases to actually store that data, but using DocApp's connector, instead of migrating, they actually connected, and they only needed 3 databases in the end. That's now grown to 15 terabytes. That's why 15 is there and not 8. Again, they had a very complex and deep file structure, not only in terms of the characters limitation, but also in terms of the permissioning. And again, using our technology, they were able to really overcome that barrier. I'm just going to read you a quote from the case study, which is actually available from our website. This was from the customer himself. So DocApp really saved us a lot of headache in terms of planning the migration and architecting a SharePoint environment to store all of the legacy data. It really has been one of the keys to our successful move to SharePoint. Our long-term vision was to build a single place for our large geographical dispersed organization to collaborate so we could do business, manage projects, communicate with each other, and share information. With SharePoint and DocApp, this has now become a reality much quicker and much more cost-effectively than we originally anticipated. So LPMA really managed to accelerate their SharePoint adoption, and they actually cut 12 months off their project timeline. So there was a huge instant return on investment going with the connected as opposed to migration. Okay, so we're going to do another scenario. I think we've got enough time. This time, Roberto, so okay, connecting is going to be great, and I can see how that's going to really help drive my adoption of SharePoint. However, I've got these old Windows 2000 servers that I have to decommission. I've been told by my manager that we don't want them on the domain, and I have to basically migrate that data into SharePoint. I know that migration projects are expensive, purely by the nature. I know that consultants aren't cheap. Along with that, I'm going to have to spend a lot of time analyzing the data to understand what processes are run there, what the security model is like, how deep the file structure goes. You know, I think all of that time is going to add to the actual migration time. Is there anything on top of that? I have to make sure that both platforms stay online at the same time. So my migration window is actually limited to weekends only. And to top it all off, my manager said that we don't want to migrate the unnecessary data, so I somehow have to filter out all the legacy data that's no longer required by the business. So is there any way you can help?
Yeah, of course. In that case, basically, we will need to follow a different approach. Okay, instead of connecting, we'll be using the migrator tool, okay? Because in this case, we want to, let's say, decommission all our file system, okay? So I want to migrate all those files from the file system into SharePoint, but carrying with me, obviously, I want to upload, migrate all that data, but meaningful data into SharePoint, okay? With all those. I want to migrate with my existing content types or my existing columns and even manage metadata. So in that case, we'll be using a different tool, obviously. That will be the migrator. Okay? For the migration, basically, this is very easy. Okay? Let's say, yeah, in this case, I have my file system, just for the demo, not very big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use docaf to use the migration. The migration is very straightforward. You can create unlimited plans, and depending obviously on your SLAs and how fast you want to do the migration, you will be able to, for example, to create different schedules. So you mentioned that you want to run that migration during the weekends, so you can just create different schedules to run either full or incremental migrations, and then create multiple plans to migrate different folders, subfolders, your different structure, etc. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to migrate this folder into normal document library, okay? But on top of that, I'm going to upload all those files with custom metadata, okay? So to perform this process, okay, what we're going to do is we create an Excel file, okay? This Excel file will be created for every folder that you are going to migrate. So that way, this Excel file, what it's going to contain is going to contain all the metadata from your file system. So obviously, at this point, you can manipulate all the metadata. Each row will be, each column will be a column, an actual column in SharePoint. So you have, yeah, like the owner, the file name, folder path, etc. But then, let's say you want type, for example, you can delete it, and that won't be create a column in SharePoint. What we offer is that you will be able to create your custom metadata, for example. So in this case, I will be migrating those files, but at the same time, I will be applying my own taxonomy that I already have. In this case, to use manage metadata, I only need to have a group term, a group and a term set created. I don't need any term. Those ones will be migrated and will create the terms for me. The same, the other column, for example, is just a drop-down list with values. But we support, yeah, single text, we support choice, we support date and time, yep, lookup columns, any kind of normal column that you can create in SharePoint. So with this Excel file, okay, this is the Excel file that you apply to the plan that you are running here. So because it's going to take that name of the Excel file when running the migration. So I'm going to run this migration, and I'm going to, for example, I don't know, I'm going to create a new subfolder under my shared documents, okay? So this is refreshing the plan. I had already one created.
Any questions at this point?
Okay, I think it's now loading the whole tree. Okay, so I'm going to create here a new folder. Okay, for example, migration. So we'll save a new plan, and I'm going to run it now. Since this is not a schedule, it's going to ask me if I want to run a full or incremental migration, and I will overwrite, for example. So at this point, while the migration is being done, I will just show you that you will be able to not only migrate with all your custom metadata, but also you will be able to make use of special filters if you want to exclude files, I don't know, that are in your file system and are from maybe 10 years old. So you want to exclude from the migration those files. And while this is running, I will show you, for example, just...
Sorry, that exclusion, you need to do it in each of the Excel files?
No. The filter will apply for the whole plan.
But where do you put the filter?
Here, sorry. The filter will be from here. Sorry. Yeah, that's the resolution. So for each plan that you create, you apply one filter. At the end, the Excel file is just only it's going to be a file that automatically will be populated with all the metadata existing in that folder, subfolders, etc. And then you can manipulate. Obviously, we have customers that they script because they have a structure of folders based on the name of departments, for example. So you can script and automatically just pre-populate those Excel files with the name of the departments, creating a new library or a new folder, etc.
One of our customers actually used this tool, and they scripted the Excel spreadsheets, and then they sent them out to the business owners and said, right, this is your data, you fill out the missing blanks in the metadata, and delete any files that you don't want migrated. So as the Excel spreadsheet parses during the migration job, if that file doesn't exist, it doesn't get migrated. And likewise, anything they edited or manipulated will be obviously in SharePoint straight away. So it's a very powerful solution for them.
Yep. Obviously, we have, like with Connector, we are able to illegal character, to skip the illegal characters, to adjust the length of the characters, etc. So, okay, the process is finished. So I will just show you that now, within my managed metadata, I will be able to see the new. Okay, I think that's because I'm. Okay, yeah, I know why.
Yes. Yeah. You can filter by access name.
So I have my my managed metadata with all my taxonomy. In this case, as you can see, the same terms that I created with my in my migration in my Excel file, it will be automatically created, and from my from my libraries, I have my shared documents, and I should have this new migration folder that I just created, okay, with all the metadata populated. So I have those files and all the metadata. In this case, I just need to, for example, just to show you, you can just edit the properties, and at this point, you can just, for example, change, add more manage metadata. You can change from the drop down the different values, etc. And obviously we support also like it's called the end user migration, where users they have the actual credentials will be able, through this web part, will be able to upload files from the file system, okay, and then still will be able to upload them with metadata. So if they want to just upload those files manually and then select the different values from the either managed metadata or your own content types, etc. So yes, let me.
Okay, so just to recap, with DocAv, you can seamlessly migrate from multiple platforms. As Roberto just showed you file shares there, but we also support Documentum, EMC eRoom, Lotus Notes, Exchange Public Folders, obviously legacy versions of SharePoint, all from the same graphical user interface. We also have a number of pre-scanning tools which will allow you to do the bulk of the analysis, which will actually return you when the data was last accessed, who owns the data, the security model on that data, hopefully saving you a lot of time. And then how do you actually map those elements from the legacy source into SharePoint? So again, as Roberto showed you, we can map to the new features like manage metadata, but if you wanted to map a specific site or a specific list from a legacy platform into a SharePoint 2010 environment, we can do that mapping on the fly as well. Mm-hmm. So what this actually means is that your migration job now becomes a repeatable process that you can basically package and give to the business to actually run their migration plans, schedule it within DocAv, run it over weekends, in the evenings, etc., etc. And the way the application works is that there's no downtime. Our agents run side by side. There's very minimal impact on both environments. So migration plans can actually be done during business hours if you want. And the way DocAv works is that we actually validate the migration. So again, if you're looking for ways to ensure that you successfully migrated from A to B, you can use our logging in DocAv to actually validate that process. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is the current platform as it stands. There's over 35 different modules in the DocAv version 5 platform. Our software has been developed organically, all from the same development team. So each module not only complements and integrates with another module. So on the storage, on the RBS side, if you're replicating stubs, we can make sure that on the back end, the stubs, as well as the replication process on the application side works. Our backup solution is integrated with our RBS provider, thus giving you a one-stop shop for your infrastructure needs, a complete end-to-end solution. And just to finish off, we're actually running a promotion right now which gives you 100 gig free of charge to migrate from any platform to SharePoint 2010. So if anyone has any questions, we'll be obviously in the exhibitors hall and we'll be happy to give you more information on that promotion. Thank you.
Thank you very much.